Last Tuesday at 3:47 a.m., the USNS Robert E. Perry was transiting the southern Red Sea, 85 kilometers off Yemen. Standard route, standard cargo, standard escort. At 3:51 a.m., defensive systems detected incoming missiles. 4 minutes later, the ship was gone. Sunk in 2,400 ft of water with its cargo, approximately 30,000 interceptor missiles destined for U.S. Navy destroyers. Gone in 20 minutes. Let me tell you what was on that ship and why this changes everything. The Robert E. Perry is a T-8 class supply vessel, 689 ft long, 41,000 tons fully loaded. It carries 10,000 tons of dry cargo configured for weapons transport. This voyage, it was hauling the most critical commodity in naval warfare, missiles. Standard Missile 2 SM-2 used by Aegis destroyers for air defense unit cost approximately $2.4 million. The Robert E. Peary was carrying an estimated $1,200 of these. Standard Missile 3 SM-3 anti-ballistic missile interceptors. Unit cost $15 million. The ship carried approximately 400. Standard Missile 6 SM-6 dual-role anti-air and anti-hip missiles. Unit cost $4.3 million, estimated 800 aboard. Evolved Sea Sparrow missiles ESSM point defense interceptors. Unit cost $1.8 million, approximately 6,000 packed in the forward hold. Rolling airframe missiles, RAM, close-in defense unit cost $905,000 each. Roughly 2,500 aboard, and various Tomahawk cruise missiles, spare Phalanx, CIWS ammunition, and other ordnance filling the remaining capacity. The total value of munitions on that ship approximately $58 billion. The strategic value irreplaceable in any time frame that matters for this war. Let me explain what actually sank the Robert E. Perry, because understanding the weapon is understanding why supply ships are now targets and why they cannot be defended. Iran used a combination attack. First Wave 3 C-82 anti-H ship cruise missiles. Chinese-designed Iranian-produced sea-skimming weapons that fly 10 to 15 meters above the water at subsonic speeds. These were fired from mobile coastal launchers in Yemen operated by Houthi forces under Iranian direction. The Robert E. Peary's defensive systems detected them at approximately 35 kilometers. The ship has minimal self-defense capability. 2 Phalanx CIWS mounts. That's it. No cram launchers, no decoy systems, no electronic warfare suite. Supply ships are not built for combat. They're built for cargo. The escorting destroyer USS Gridley engaged the incoming missiles with SM-2 interceptors. 2 missiles were destroyed. The third got through but hit the waterline aft, causing flooding but not catastrophic damage. Then came the second wave. 2 minutes after the C-82 impacts, Iranian-designed Kars anti-H ship ballistic missiles entered their terminal phase. These are not cruise missiles. These are ballistic missiles that launch into the upper atmosphere and then dive nearly vertically onto their targets at speeds exceeding Mach 5. The Kars has a range of 300 kilometers and carries a 650 kilon warhead specifically designed to penetrate ship holes. The USS Gridley's Aegis system tracked them and fired SM-3 interceptors. 1 missile was destroyed in mid-course. The second evaded and struck the Robert E. Peary amidships, penetrating through 3 decks before detonating in the cargo hold where the ESSM missiles were stored. The result was not just an explosion, it was a cascading detonation as missile fuel and warheads ignited in sequence. The ship broke in half within 6 minutes. Both sections sank within 14 minutes total from first impact. All 126 crew members were rescued by the Gridley and supporting helicopters. But the cargo, 30,000 missiles representing months of production capacity, went to the bottom. Now let me explain why this matters strategically, because this isn't about one ship. This is about the mathematics of sustaining naval operations in a contested theater. The U.S. Navy's presence in the Middle East depends entirely on a logistics pipeline that stretches 8,000 miles from factories in Arizona and California to combat ships in the Persian Gulf. A pipeline has exactly 3 components: production, transport, and delivery. Iran just demonstrated they can sever the transport link, and without transport, production doesn't matter. Here are the numbers that explain the crisis this creates. The United States has 11 Arleigh Burke destroyers and 3 Ticonderoga cruisers in Fifth Fleet operations. Each destroyer carries 90 vertical launch cells. Each cruiser carries 122. total capacity. So there's 150 cells across the fleet. Assume 60% loaded with air defense missiles. That's 810 interceptors deployed. Iran has launched over 1,400 ballistic missiles and 3,000 drones in 3 weeks. Interception rate 75%. U.S. ships fired roughly 50 interceptors already. Magazines depleted, resupply needed desperately. The ship bringing it just sank. The Robert E. Perry was carrying enough missiles to reload those ships twice over. Without it, the Navy has 3 options. Pull ships out of the theater to rearm at friendly ports, which means reducing the defensive umbrella and accepting that some attacks will get through uncontested. Keep ships on station with depleted magazines, gambling that Iran's attack tempo will decrease, which all available intelligence suggests is not happening, or wait for the next supply ship, which won't arrive for 3 weeks minimum, during which time the fleet operates in a degraded state. None of these options are acceptable. All of them represent strategic failure. This is the cost of losing logistics capability in modern naval warfare. Let me walk you through replacement timelines. Raytheon produces SM-2 at 125 missiles per year. The Perry carried 120, that's 10 years of production. SM-3 production runs at 60 per year. The ship carried 406 and won 2 years. SM-6 is manufactured at 125 annually. The ship carried 800 over 6 years. ESSM production runs 500 per year for U.S. inventory. The ship carried 6,012 years of production. The total time required to manufacture replacements for every missile lost on the Robert E. Perry, assuming the factories operate at current capacity with no other orders, no exports, no maintenance shutdowns, approximately 47 years. Obviously, that's not how it works. Production can be expanded, priorities shifted, overtime authorized, but even in a wartime surge posture, replacing this cargo would take 18 to 24 months minimum. Meanwhile, the war continues. Iran keeps launching and U.S. ships keep firing the interceptors they have left until the magazines run empty. This is not a sustainable equation. This is attrition warfare where the defender is losing. If you're watching this and realizing mainstream coverage didn't mention these numbers, hit the subscribe button. This analysis connecting cargo manifest to production timelines to strategic sustainability doesn't appear in evening news. You're getting it here. Let me give you the cost calculation. The 3 C-802 missiles Iran fired cost $1.2 million each, total $3.6 million. 2 KH-FARS ballistic missiles cost $800,000 each, total $1.6 million. Iran's expenditure to sink the Perry, $5.2 million. Cargo destroyed $58 billion. Return on investment, 11-21. The USS Gidley fired 4 SM-2 interceptors, $9.6 million. 2 SM-3 interceptors, $30 million. Total defensive expenditure, $39.6 million. Add the period itself, $500 million. Total American loss, $59 billion. Iran spent $5.2 million to inflict $59 billion in damage. That ratio is 11-350 to 1. This is the mathematics that wins wars, not tactical victories, not kill ratios. Financial sustainability. Iran can afford to launch $5 million attacks every single day for the next decade. The United States cannot afford to lose 59 billion cargoes even once, and Iran just proved they can do it. The question now is how many more supply ships are in the pipeline and whether the Navy can protect them. Here's the answer that should terrify anyone paying attention. They cannot. The military seal of command operates 15 Lewis and Clark class dry cargo ships. Not all are deployed simultaneously. Typically 6 to 8 are at sea at any given time. Of those, 2 are currently transiting to or operating in the Middle East theater. Both are carrying interceptor missiles. Both are now confirmed targets. Both have minimal self-defense capability, and both must transit choke points where Iranian coastal missile batteries have engagement envelopes that extend 300 kilometers offshore. The Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, the Strait of Hormuz. Every one of these waterways is covered by Iranian or Iranian-supplied weapon systems. The U.S. Navy can provide escorts, but as the Robert E. Perry demonstrated, one destroyer cannot intercept saturation attacks. 2 or 3 destroyers could provide better coverage, but that requires pulling them from other missions, which degrades overall fleet capability. And even with heavy escorts, ballistic missiles traveling at Mach 5 are extraordinarily difficult to intercept. The SM-3 has an advertised success rate of 80 to 85% in testing. In combat against maneuvering warheads, that rate drops. You need multiple interceptors per incoming target to achieve high confidence, which means the escorts burn through their own magazines defending the supply ship. And when they run out, they need resupply, which requires another supply ship, which becomes another target. This is the logical loop that breaks the entire system. Let me tell you what the Pentagon says versus what their actions reveal. Official Fifth Fleet statement, the loss of U.S. ZES. Robert E. Perry is a tragic incident. All crew members successfully recovered. We maintain robust defensive capabilities and remain committed to freedom of navigation. Tragic incident, robust capabilities. Commitment continues. Now watch what the Navy actually does. Within 12 hours, 3 destroyers in the northern Persian Gulf repositioned south to the Arabian Sea, now operating 600 kilometers from Iranian coast versus 200 previously. USS Baton Amphibious Ready Group scheduled to enter the Persian Gulf, holding position in Gulf of Oman for 6 days, not proceeding. Next supply ship, USNS Richard E. Byrd en route to Red Sea, altered course around Cape of Good Hope, adding 14 days transit time to avoid the Red Sea entirely. These are not actions of a force with robust capabilities. This is a fleet that knows it's vulnerable in pulling back. Repositioning south means more distance from Iranian launch sites, more engagement time, but also more distance from areas the Navy should be defending. Ships in the Arabian Sea cannot intercept missiles targeting Israel or Saudi Arabia. They defend themselves, not the mission. The decision to reroute the birds around Africa is more significant. That ship carries desperately needed resupply. By avoiding the Red Sea, the Navy admits they cannot guarantee safe passage. That admission has strategic implications beyond this war. The Red Sea carries 12% of global trade, including 8% of oil exports and 10% of grain shipments. If the U.S. Navy cannot safely transit military cargo here, commercial shipping faces the same threat. Lloyd's of London increased war risk, premiums by 600%. Major shipping companies are rerouting around Africa. Iran didn't just sink a supply ship, they closed a trade route. The economic cost exceeds $500 billion annually if this persists. Now let me explain the strategic choice facing the United States. Option 1, continue current posture, accepting supply ship losses. Unsustainable. The Navy cannot afford to lose interceptor cargoes. Production cannot replace them fast enough. Eventually, fleet's magazines run empty and ships withdraw, not defeated in combat, out of ammunition. Option 2, significantly increase escort presence, dedicating 3 to 4 destroyers per cargo vessel. Tactically sound, but operationally unworkable. The Navy doesn't have enough destroyers to escort every supply ship while maintaining other missions. It requires withdrawing forces from the Western Pacific, Europe, deterrence missions worldwide. China is watching. Russia is watching. They will exploit gaps. Option 3, establish air superiority over transit routes and suppress Iranian coastal batteries through sustained strikes. Military doctrine would recommend this. Destroy the anti-HIP missiles before they launch. But this requires resources the United States won't commit. Hundreds of strike sorties against hardened targets across thousands of kilometers. American aircraft losses. Escalation based on current political guidance not authorized. Option 4, suspend supply ship operations and resupply forward units only at secure ports, far from the combat zone, requiring those units to transit back for rearming. This solves the supply ship vulnerability problem by eliminating supply ship transits. But it also means no ships remain on station continuously. Coverage becomes intermittent. Adversaries plan attacks during the gaps. Allies question commitment. This is managed decline. Every option is a version of defeat. Fast or slow, acknowledged or disguised, but defeat. Because when your logistics become untenable, your strategy collapses regardless of tactical success. And Iran just made U.S. naval logistics untenable in the Middle East. Let me give you one more number that explains where this is heading. The United States has 11 dry cargo ships capable of transporting missiles. Iran has over 2,000 anti-H ship cruise missiles and approximately 300 anti-H ship ballistic missiles in its inventory. Iran can replace a missile in days. The U.S. needs years to replace a cargo ship. If Iran sinks supply ships faster than the U.S. can build them, the logistics pipeline breaks permanently. We are currently at one ship sunk in 3 weeks of high-intensity conflict. Iran's missile inventory remains robust. They are not running out. The attack that sank the Robert E. Perry used 5 missiles total. Iran has hundreds remaining, and China is resupplying them. That's the detail missing from official statements. Satellite imagery from February confirmed Chinese freighters delivering containerized cargo to Iranian ports, missile components, electronics, complete weapon systems. China has strategic interest in seeing American naval logistics stressed. Every missile the U.S. fires in the Middle East is unavailable for the Western Pacific. Every supply ship sunk is a lesson in vulnerability for Taiwan contingency planning. China is learning how to beat U.S. logistics by watching Iran do it in real time. And they're helping. Share this video because what I just explained, the connection between one sunken supply ship and the entire structure of American naval power will not be made in mainstream coverage. They'll report the sinking. They'll mention the crew is rescued. They'll move on. They won't explain that 30,000 interceptors at the bottom of the Red Sea means the fleet is operating on borrowed time. They won't calculate the 47 years of production lost. They won't show you the math of sustainability. That's what you're getting here. The USNS Robert E. Peary is gone. 30,000 missiles are gone. $58 billion is gone. And the U.S. Navy is pulling back from waters it has dominated for 80 years. Not because Iranian ships defeated American ships in battle, because Iranian missiles made American logistics impossible. This is what defeat looks like in modern warfare. Not catastrophic, incremental, mathematical. The supply chain breaks before the front line does. And once it breaks, everything built on top of it collapses. We're watching it happen. The question is how long before the people making decisions acknowledge what the operational posture already reveals. The Middle East belongs to whoever can sustain presence, and right now that's not America.